Greetings. Sometimes it's possible for a slogan to be misconstrued. That, I think, is what happens when the Black Lives Matter movement's eponymous slogan, Black Lives Matter, is construed either as only Black Lives Matter or as Black Lives Matter more than anyone else's. There are some people who hear the slogan Black Lives Matter and immediately respond that it ought to be all lives matter. Putting aside the quibble that what is meant cannot be all lives, but must be all persons' lives. Do mosquitoes' lives matter? Do cockroaches' lives matter? Do bacteria's lives matter? And putting aside the point that what does and does not count as a person can be disputed in the earliest stages of human life, I'll discuss abortion in another video, I think we would all agree that not only Black lives matter, but all lives do, and that Black lives don't count more than anyone else's, but that all of our lives count equally. However, to pounce on the slogan Black Lives Matter as though it were intended either as only Black Lives Matter or as Black Lives Matter more than anyone else's would be to make a mistake. In a time in which several indefensible deaths of blacks at the hands of the police have dominated several news cycles and have metaphorically shown a spotlight on the problem of unequal treatment of blacks and whites at the hands of law enforcement, so too the slogan Black Lives Matter metaphorically shines a spotlight on how blacks, in particular, and at significantly greater rates than whites, suffer and have suffered at the hands of the very people whom we are supposed to trust to keep us safe. It isn't intended to draw attention away from any mistreatment of non-blacks at the hands of law enforcement. Surely, such mistreatment is also worthy of protest. But it is intended to focus attention on the mistreatment of blacks that statistically occurs more often than the mistreatment of non-blacks at the hands of police. I should add that it does seem as though misconstruals of the slogan Black Lives Matter often seem disingenuous. It often seems that those who object on grounds that it should be all lives matter make their objection not so much because they really believe that all lives matter, but because they want to try to make it appear that blacks are claiming special privileges for themselves, when in fact what is being claimed is simply equal rights and the recognition of equal status as persons living in society. And it often seems as though at least some of those who object to the slogan Black Lives Matter by crying that it ought to be all lives matter don't actually place much value on black lives, or for that matter, on illegal immigrants' lives, or even asylum seekers' lives, or their children's lives. All lives matter is a great slogan, and we should indeed place value on every person's life. I'm certainly not going to object to anyone's adopting that slogan. I hope everyone would endorse it. For those who do think that all lives matter, and that all lives matter equally, whether they're white lives or black lives, whether they're citizens' lives or illegal immigrants' lives, and who do actually treat everyone equally, and who do actually favor policies promoting racial equality. I want to point out that it sometimes seems as though everybody treats white lives as mattering, and it's the metaphorical shining of a spotlight on the fact that apparently not everybody does treat black lives as mattering, that the slogan Black Lives Matter is supposed to do, highlighting a problem that the United States has had for a long time, and despite making progress, has not yet succeeded in fully resolving. It's not a slogan that is supposed to say that only Black lives matter, and it's not a slogan that is supposed to say that Black lives matter more than anybody else's. And I should think that that would be obvious to anyone who wasn't being disingenuous. And that's how we should understand the slogan Black Lives Matter, as metaphorically shining a spotlight on a problem that America has not yet fully resolved, and of course, pushing for America to go ahead and attempt to fully resolve it. Ensuring that black lives really are treated as mattering just as much as white lives ought to be a project that unites us, not one that divides us. As always, may reason and compassion be your guides.